She's a round-trip ticket to paradise.
It's heaven on earth down here. It really is. There's 14 different shades of turquoise in the water.
MS Paul Gauguin is the stuff dreams are made of.
Probably the #1 trip of my life.
It's more than a bucket list. This is why we have so many repeat passengers.
2 team, please, over here.
Can you get off to 110?
110.
Her steely-eyed captain stares down a tropical storm, charting an escape from civilization. Motor ship Paul Gauguin is queen of the South Pacific, the only vessel that sails year-round to the most remote islands of French Polynesia.
140 on 2. Yeah, coming to 095.
Her 332 passengers pay between $6,000 and $20,000 to relax in her deluxe staterooms or experience one-of-a-kind encounters below the turquoise sea. At 154 meters in length, MS Paul Gauguin is exceptional above and below decks, specially designed to navigate French Polynesia's underwater ecosystem. Her relatively flat hull and shallow 5.2-meter draft let her glide over coral reefs and access hidden ports where other travelers rarely step ashore.
When you see all the islands which we visit, I think it's pretty simple to get in love. No, but this is how it should be, huh? This is the weather.
At 41 years of age, Captain Tony Tomjanovich is just 2 years into his very first command.
As a captain on Paul Gauguin, I have to say, I couldn't start better, you know. I have started from the top.
MS Paul Gauguin is at anchor in Papeete, the capital city of Tahiti. It's the only glimpse of civilization for most of the voyage. French Polynesia's tiny islands lie halfway between California and Australia, in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean, a vast stretch of water that reaches almost halfway around the globe. On this special 2-week journey, Paul Gauguin will visit 3 of French Polynesia's 5 island chains. First, the coral reefs and lagoons of the Tuamotus. Then the rugged and mountainous Marquesas Islands. Finally, Paul Gauguin will return to the Society Islands, calling in at the famous ports of Bora Bora and then Mora on her way back to Tahiti. It's a voyage of 4,100 kilometers.
Tu vas bien? Ouais. We serve vegetables?
It's 8 a.m. and already 25 degrees on the pier. 2 containers of food and a truckload of fish are waiting to be loaded aboard.
Ok, c'est bon.
The fish is local, but these fresh strawberries had to be transported 6,600 kilometers from California.
We have to check them all, you know, carefully and all the boxes. Okay, merci.
Food and beverage manager Stefan Cariou gives a sharp once-over to every morsel coming on board.
They arrived this morning early by the 7 o'clock flight, so we know we have that very, very fresh.
The ship takes on 5,600 kilograms of fresh produce, some of it from local suppliers bringing seasonal ingredients. But Chef Daniel Benches says that can be a crapshoot.
You're at the end of the world, so you never know what you're going to get until you open the container or on the day the suppliers are coming.
Today, the chef and Stefan are excited to discover a special delivery.
This is the Moonfish.
It's not available in so many places.
It's very local. Before they called it a goodwill fish because the locals gave it away as a token of goodwill to each other. So we will only get 1 each cruise.
Along with the Moonfish, there's enough fish for only the first half of the cruise. They'll keep their fingers crossed for a fresh catch en route.
Attendez, les gars, qu'on compte.
Provisioning is going swimmingly, but then the loading process hits a snag.
Conveyor belt kapot. Why now? Huh? The conveyor belt is not working, so we cannot load the fresh vegetables, and they have to be inside the fridge within 1-2 hours because it's very hot.
Press the emergency.
It's probably something small or a fuse or I hope so.
An electrician jumps in to troubleshoot.
Nico, you're gonna fix it quick, huh?
The heat has climbed to nearly 30 degrees. Delicate greens, eggs, and cheeses are still sitting on the pier. If the conveyor belt doesn't start up within 15 minutes, they'll have to race every single item by hand through the passenger gangway further down the pier. Nearer to the bow, the ship herself is being nourished. There's nowhere to fill up once the voyage begins, so a full 395 tons of heavy fuel flows out of the holding tanks below the pier. That's not the only precious fluid that needs to come on board.
It is important to take water here because this is the only source of water which you have in French Polynesia.
According to Chief Engineer Peter Nikolov, every drop of fresh water counts. The ship can only take on 500 tons, enough to last for 2 to 3 days. The rest must be produced by onboard desalination, a process that removes the salt from seawater, making it safe to drink. It's down to the wire on that broken conveyor.
The wire is cut.
With no time left on the clock, the wiring is fixed and the conveyor is back in order.
Must be an attractive.
Just off the pier, Chef Daniel and Stefan meet up with a favorite local farmer, Sonia Fawa, who supplies the ship with her own mangoes and avocados.
On peut pas dire. Okay. There are so many that I can't tell how many there are.
Hi, are you with the Paul Gauguin?
In the midst of haggling, some nervy passengers turn up 4 hours early, expecting VIP treatment.
Can you take our luggage?
Absolutely. See? Right timing. You knew we were here, right?
So the two senior managers assume the role of baggage handlers.
You want to take two, chef?
Not my day.
Allez.
Was not in my contract,
No.
huh?
Let's go on a cruise, chef.
Departure Papete 22:30, and we will go obviously full speed to Fakarava.
Since MS Paul Gauguin travels this particular solitary route only a few times each year, the captain prepares his bridge team for any contingency.
The biggest challenge is always the weather.
There's another mandate. Do no harm to Polynesia's delicate natural environment.
Obviously, entering and exiting through certain channels in French Polynesia, it's a little bit tricky. Narrow entrances, the special coral reefs, it's something which we take with great responsibility.
At 3 p.m., boarding commences with a side order of ukulele and Tahitian greetings.
Hello, welcome.
Hello. I had a lot of friends who told me how much they loved the Paul Gauguin cruises.
I have a friend who had been on the Paul Gauguin, said it was the best trip he'd taken.
We were here 2 months ago, actually, also. We've done 2 in a row.
By 11:15 at night, they've loaded most of the guests. Paul Gauguin was supposed to set sail 45 minutes ago, but a missing busload of passengers is holding up departure.
Here's the bus.
Moments later, that last bus swings onto the pier.
And I think 16 people inside. 45 minutes delay, which is still okay. Huh?
We will have all guests on board.
All guests on board, thank you very
Okay,
much.
let's start.
Okay, gangway, you can start removing conveyor.
Captain Tomjanovich is eager for Paul Gauguin to set sail. He's got a shipload of passengers who expect to wake up in paradise. MS Paul Gauguin is on day 2 of her 14-day tour of French Polynesia.
Come to 258.
She's plowing through the South Pacific en route to her first stop amid the coral reefs and lagoons of the Tuamotus. Out on the pool deck, dive master Clement Cassadet brings some divers with rusty skills back up to speed.
I think we have the safety of the pool. We can take the time they need to practice, and after they will be ready for this dive and see the fish.
Okay, guys, ready?
They review clearing their masks, breathing underwater, and communicating with hand signals in preparation for the real thing tomorrow. French Polynesia offers some of the most spectacular scuba diving on Earth.
And when you come in French Polynesia, you do expect to have almost everything on the water.
If you're not a guest aboard Paul Gauguin, there's no way to access dive sites in the faraway islands.
You get to go to some really kind of remote places and dives without leaving a great luxurious ship.
And this will be our first time diving in the Pacific.
That's why passengers Jackie and David chose Paul Gauguin for their anniversary cruise.
I'm looking forward to seeing some big fish.
Big fish?
Big fish, sharks.
It's pretty rare to have all those species combined in one unique cruise. Most of the time you have to go different places in the world to find those different animals. So in one cruise they can see all of that.
Butler service.
Other guests in the deluxe suites would rather start their day with an intimate petit déjeuner served by a private butler.
And the most important part, the bottle of champagne with your caviar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. We're going to start a coconut.
By the time the midday sun is overhead, festivities are ramping up on the pool deck.
For you, madame.
Food and beverage manager Stéphane Cariou oversees liquid refreshments, fresh from the flying machete of Tewai Lenoir. Tewai is more than a bartender. He's head of the cultural troupe known as Les Gauguins, who share their local knowledge with the guests.
I'm trying to show all those people coming from outside here. This is opportunity for us to show that we have a culture here.
Chef Daniel Benches also puts on a show with the moonfish he brought on board yesterday.
So this fish is called a moonfish. It's actually because of the shape. It's round. As you can see, you go quite deep. So the fillet is quite deep. You go around the corner here, and then you have to find the bone. It's actually lying flat all over the fish. Et voila. Et voila. We will serve it tonight just plain grilled. Nice fish. Oh.
Meanwhile, 9 decks down in the engine room, they're already cooking. It's almost 40 degrees in here. Chief Engineer Peter Nikolov and his team begin their semi-annual overhaul of one of the 2 boilers that provide all of the ship's hot water.
If we don't clean this boiler every 6 months, a lot of soot will accumulate inside.
Maintenance is vital. In such remote seas, a breakdown would be disastrous.
In the worst scenario, this soot can burn and to destroy entire boiler.
Despite the heat down here, they've got to keep working. The ship can't go any longer than 48 hours with just 1 boiler in operation.
Very good Arturo.
It's 6:15 p.m. In the galley, Chef Daniel conducts a last-minute inspection before the diners arrive.
Put it back here, because otherwise they cannot see it. Maybe you can do the porcupine with the mango. Yeah? Don't burn it, because the plate is very hot.
The main dining room, L'Etoile, is open for business.
2 fish, table 17B, station 6.
On the menu tonight, that moonfish the chef demoed earlier.
It's popular, the moonfish.
Madam, your fish, it's a moonfish. So bon appetit, enjoy.
Day 3. And the sun rises on MS Paul Gauguin's first stop, the coral atoll of Fakarava. An atoll is formed when coral grows along the ridge of an extinct underwater volcano. Then waves break down the coral to create a sandy ring-shaped island surrounding a lagoon. There's only 16 square kilometers of actual land on Fakarava, reaching just 4 meters above sea level in a narrow band that's just half a kilometer wide. But the lagoon is large enough to wrap around the city of New York. Fakarava is part of the largest chain of coral atolls in the world. There are no piers for the ship to dock at here, so she anchors in a designated spot where she can't damage the coral. Her tender boats move guests to shore for sightseeing. Over on Fakarava, passengers succumb to the relaxed rhythms of island time. Back on board Paul Gauguin, the water sports deck comes to life. The massive watertight door on the stern transforms into a platform. It's operated by hydraulics, directed by an electronic control system. This is where passengers can take out a kayak or paddleboard. It's also where a local dive boat arrives to pick up passengers for the first big dive of the trip.
It's really exciting to go diving here. You don't know what's gonna happen.
"10 kilometers away from the ship, the divers hit the water. Dive master Clement Cassidy releases a nylon surface marker buoy to pinpoint their location. With a 3-to-1 ratio of divers to dive master, it's like a private underwater tour. This unspoiled coral reef is protected by UNESCO. It's home to abundant tropical fish, rays, and sharks. Today's dive brings some great sights and whets their appetites for what's to come.
It was beautiful. There was a lot of really bright coral. It was a really healthy reef.
It was the healthiest reef I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Not a single patch of sand.
Yeah.
It was just a solid, like...
Coral everywhere.
Coral, and healthy coral.
The sun goes down quickly in the South Pacific as MS Paul Gauguin makes her way out of the Fakarava Lagoon. Passengers congregate in the hallways for the ship's version of a block party. The captain puts in a brief appearance. A joking matter for the passenger, but deadly serious to the captain. Soon after, he slips off to prepare himself for one of the biggest challenges he will face on this voyage, a complicated arrival at the island of Hiva-Oa. It's day 6 of a 2-week voyage through French Polynesia.
Okay, we'll slowly start our turn to starboard. Starboard 5.
MS Paul Gauguin is surrounded by rugged mountain peaks that soar up to 1,200 meters above the sea. She's arriving at the island of Hiva-Oa, part of the volcanic chain known as the Marquesas. Paul Gauguin will anchor here, if she can navigate the hazards.
I have to say that this is the most challenging island for us.
There's no sheltering lagoon here, so Captain Tanovich must anchor his vessel on the open ocean, and he's got a complicated choice to make. Often at this location, the wind and the swells come from the same direction, so the captain would drop 2 anchors to keep the ship stable. That protects the gangway and tender in rough seas.
The main concern will be on how the ship will position herself on the swell over there.
But today, the wind is coming from the north and the swells from the east. So he opts for the flexibility of just one anchor, which allows him to pivot the ship in changing conditions.
And looking at the state of the sea and everything, I have to say that we will drop one anchor. There is no benefit of dropping two anchors.
It's 1 o'clock, tight.
Okay, thank you. Starboard anchor, one on deck, ready to drop. Thank you.
Thank you.
But the crew can't relax just yet. Now, the trick will be to safely transfer the passengers from the ship to the tender boats, bobbing up and down on the swells.
We will stay on something which we called level 1, which means we will run still two engines. This will allow to the officer on watch to actually protect the gangway using the stern thrustering.
Even with the ship anchored, the swells make it nearly impossible to keep the tender boats in the correct position for boarding. So the captain engages a propeller mounted inside Paul Gauguin's hull at the back of the ship. It's called a stern thruster, and it can swing the ship broadside to the swells, sheltering the tender at the gangway.
Hold on the handrails.
Hiva-Oa has barely changed in the years since it inspired the greatest paintings of the artist Paul Gauguin. The cruise ship's famous namesake lived here around 1900. Now his grave is a pilgrimage site for passengers as they spend a full day exploring the island. It's a different scene altogether back down in the cruise ship's engine room. Chief Engineer Peter Nikolov is giving the boiler cleanup a final inspection. The boiler combustion chamber has been thoroughly scoured. Now the engineering team has to put it all back together.
Now we'll take one more day to fill up the boiler with water, slowly to heat up, to raise the pressure, to inspect all safety devices, and after that to put back in operation.
Up on Deck 5 in Le Grand Salon, Cruise Director Steve Wood rehearses the Gauguin's cultural troupe for an authentic South Seas performance.
Because then we can see the great moves that you're doing up there.
We rarely push the culture on here.
So that's very different than the other cruise lines. We don't have the big bingos or you know, the big pyrotechnic shows. It's all local things. But the guests love it because it's not a mass-produced show that they're seeing. It's that raw talent that they're seeing on stage.
It's day 7 of the Polynesian cruise. At 6 a.m., 7 kilometers off the volcanic island of Tawata, Paul Gauguin begins her approach.
Okay, Larry, you can go forward. Prepare yourself mentally for the task. There is something down, huh? Ah, there is this fishing boat there,
Fishing boat, no problem.
But the fishing boats aren't the issue. The ocean floor here looks just like the topography above water, with steep canyons that suddenly fall off up to 400 meters. That's way too deep to drop the anchor. So the bridge crew has to find the only place where it's shallow enough to do so. MS Paul Gauguin has found the one tiny area where it's shallow enough to anchor, just off the Marquesan island of Tuata.
Usually we never anchor on this kind of depths, which was, let's say, 63 meters. So, but she holds really nicely.
Farther out from the anchorage, the seas here are some of the deepest in the world, falling to 4,000 meters.
Bonjour.
They're home to a huge variety of fish species.
It's a lot, no?
That's why Chef Daniel is bringing his shopping list to the local market.
2 kinds of grapefruit, mango, fresh lime, but the fish is not on it, because that's we just heard yesterday.
He's running low on fish and fresh fruit for Paul Gauguin's dining rooms.
Oh, I saw a fishing boat over there, so maybe we're lucky. Same price, John. Same price, huh? So we can weigh all together. Very good. Voila. Good, huh?
TYE provides translation services.
Hey, do you know if we got any fish?
While provisions master Avelino Natividad fixes on a price. Unfortunately, those ocean swells that hampered Paul Gauguin's anchoring have beached the local fishermen.
Nothing. No fishermen today. The fishermen couldn't go out because they have to go far out, actually. So you can imagine the water is even more choppy.
They're only halfway through the voyage. With 332 guests to feed, if the chef doesn't locate some fresh fish soon, this could turn into a culinary emergency.
So I have to start talking to my F&B manager back on board and make some phone calls and emails fast, because I don't want to run out.
It's 7 a.m. on the 8th day of MS Paul Gauguin's cruise through French Polynesia. Today, passengers will visit the island of Nukuhiva. At 330 square kilometers in area, it's the largest in the Marquesan chain. A 4-wheel drive tour takes passengers through Nukuhiva's laid-back villages, timeless valleys, and mountain ranges. From 864 meters up Mwake Hill, a neighboring island appears to float between the sea and the sky.
Hi, how are you?
Down on Nukuhiva's Pier,
Est-ce que tu aurais aussi des petits poissons?
food and beverage manager Stefan Cariou has come ashore with Chef Daniel. They're desperate to land a large catch of fish.
What we really expect to have today is, a mix of mahi-mahi, wahoo, and tuna. We'll be very happy if we can get around 600 pounds of the fish.
With 3 kinds, hopefully.
We haven't heard from the suppliers yet. We placed the order a week ago, but we haven't heard. I had a very bad connection, so we really don't know what we're going to get.
There's fish all right, just no variety.
But it's only tuna, 300 kilos.
Ooh la la, look at this one.
Well, it's great anyway, but we'll be serving
a lot of tuna.
A lot of tuna.
So the chef will have to get creative.
Regular way with coconut milk. We can make sushi, sashimi, lots of things. Tuna tartar.
Tuna ice cream.
Tuna ice cream.
Fortunately, there are plenty of non-fishy options like steak, lobster, and chicken that Chef Daniel can whip up for the menu. After 2 days at sea, MS Paul Gauguin kicks off her swing through the Society Islands, approaching the island of Wahini. A small yacht is in the way.
Oh, these are these yachties. It's not that they are, let's say, nevertheless that they consider themselves a real sailors. Sometimes it's really strange what they can do, but okay.
Captain Tomjanovich may appear laid back.
It's not that I'm so calm, actually. You never show actually what you really think, so.
He's weighing his responsibilities.
Each entrance in Wahini, I have to say, is challenging. Okay, sailboat is clear. 262.
262, sir.
The entranceway to Wahini's Mora Bay is very narrow, only 70 meters between the buoys that mark the safe zone. The ship herself is 22 meters wide. And on either side of her, a shallow coral reef is visible just below the surface. There's no margin for error.
So you really need to be quick to respond. So you always think about your additional or plan B, let's call it like that. Something which you always have in your mind.
That same relatively flat hull that lets Paul Gauguin navigate shallow waters has a downside. It makes her shift slightly side to side in the wind. That compounds the delicate navigation.
She glides on the waves, and so like that, it's not easy for a helmsman to keep her in designated course. Can go 4 on bow thruster.
4 on bow thruster?
Yeah. Start now coming to the lead, you know.
If Captain Tomjanovich lets his attention waver for just a second, Paul Gauguin could end up on the reef.
Now it's 1.1 mile to the anchor position.
Let's see how we are on the lead.
Captain Tomjanovich is negotiating MS Paul Gauguin's arrival in Mora Bay on the island of Wahini.
Yeah, right.
He's brought her safely through a narrow passageway lined with razor-sharp coral on either side. The captain can't rest on his laurels. He's got another mission to accomplish.
One more bottle, huh?
In these waters, coral can grow quickly on the hull, clogging essential equipment. Luckily, both the captain and the chief engineer are certified divers. That's a critical skill they'll put into action on today's semi-annual inspection.
Okay. Thomas, are you ready?
Yes, we are ready, huh? Chief Electrician, Chief Engineer.
Yes.
Please extend starboard side stabilizer.
Okay.
Using high-intensity lights, they're able to conduct a detailed inspection of the massive retractable stabilizers. They're like giant fins that tilt up or down to counteract wave motion. Then they scrutinize the 154-meter length of the hull, checking for excessive rust. Finally, moving to the ship's stern. Sometimes fishing nets get tangled up in this huge 2-ton propeller. That's a hazard. It's essential equipment required to power Paul Gauguin at speeds up to 18 knots or 33 kilometers per hour. This is the stern thruster that the bridge crew employed to counteract the swells back in Hiva-Oa. A small amount of coral has collected on the surface, but not enough to affect performance. With the inspection complete, the crew heads back to the water sports platform on Paul Gauguin's stern.
Everything looks fine and good, I have to say. Stabilizer is excellent. Propeller is also a little bit of coral growth on our hub. Viva Las Vegas!
It's all go for Captain Tomjanovich. In just 4 hours, MS Paul Gauguin will set sail for a major highlight of this cruise. She's traveling 124 kilometers to a playground for the rich and famous, the island of Bora Bora. Dawn reveals the stuff dreams are made of. An extinct volcano wreathed in mystique. Bora Bora's lagoon is celebrated as one of the most beautiful in the world. Several passengers from Paul Gauguin head out for an aqua safari.
Want to be first?
On a shallow reef about 10 minutes off Bora Bora, even non-divers can swim with the fishes.
Go down.
This getup consists of a large, heavy helmet attached to a long air hose. When it's weighed down on a diver's shoulders, the helmet is watertight.
Okay.
Guests can walk around and breathe naturally, safely tethered to an air supply above water. Hundreds of different species of fish and coral are found in the waters around Bora Bora. For half an hour, passengers are surrounded by zebra, wrasse, and butterfly fish, and the occasional playful stingray. Just a short distance away on the same stretch of reef.
So try to stay behind me, follow my way, and don't run me over. Okay?
Okay. These aqua-bikes operate on electric batteries, charged by solar energy. They travel up to 4 kilometers per hour and are used only in Bora Bora and the Bahamas. After a day of underwater play, it's time to head back to the cruise ship. Paul Gauguin is ready to haul anchor.
Okay, port side is clear. Port side is clear. Okay. Okay, Francisco, port 10.
"8 a.m. on day 13, and the ship is stationed just a kilometer from a Motu, a tiny private islet owned by Paul Gauguin Cruises. It's called Motu Mahana. The Galley cruise springs into action, coordinating supplies for a barbecue on the Motu. They have to ferry everything to the island and prepare it for the guests.
Very busy. Like always, every time when you get here in Taha, it's a busy day for us.
Swing out.
Meanwhile, sailors commandeer the beacher craft that will carry the supplies to shore. These beachers were originally designed to ferry invading armies.
Yeah, you will see. Our infantry is a little bit different, I would say.
A scant 2 hours later, when the first guests arrive on the islet, it's a fantasy come to life.
Like washing up on a desert island?
Paradise, basically.
It's a day of pure hedonism on the Motu.
Merci, thank you. The best Caesar salad in the island.
To top it all off, a relay race using sacks hand-woven by Tewai and weighed down with 30 kilograms of local fruit.
So I need 2 teams, please, over here.
This trip for me really is a bucket list job. It's way beyond anything I thought I'd ever do. Probably the #1 trip of my life.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered here in the presence and beauty of what God has created.
This voyage on Paul Gauguin inspires guests Genevieve and James to renew their marriage vows.
We love cruising. We've been cruising since the beginning of our relationship. We thought it would be the perfect place to reaffirm our love for each other.
It's a journey. It's the journey of our lives. So,
as the festivities wind down, Captain Tomjanovich makes a beeline for his ship. He's just learned that a storm is brewing up ahead. MS Paul Gauguin is arriving at one of the most spectacular islands on Earth, but you'd never know it.
The moment with this overcast and rain, how it looks, doesn't look so nice.
The last stop on this trek is the island of Mora, a mere 46 kilometers from the home port in Tahiti.
You want always to finish on the high note, let's put it like that.
It's not just the rained-out views that worry Captain Tomjanovich. This kind of weather is dangerous. Right at the entrance to Cook's Bay Harbor, wind gusts kick up to more than 20 knots. Combine that with the lightning.
So yes, what to do? South Pacific.
100 RPM.
100, thank you. 1.5.
There's no time to dither.
Hand steering.
Hand steering.
Noel, let's...
Hand steering, sir.
Hand steering, starboard, 10.
Starboard 10.
Captain Tomjanovich judges it's wisest to change course for a different nearby harbor.
So, it's pretty easy call, actually, to be honest.
That Moraine Bay should be protected from the worst of the winds.
When you have this small voice in your head which says to you that, you should do something, then it's better be safe than sorry. Stop the starboard engine.
Stop starboard engine.
For now, the lightning has stopped, but the rain continues as passengers Jackie and David head out on their final dive.
It's not raining underwater, so it's not a problem.
I think we'll get wet anyway. This last dive takes place just outside Morea's reef and down 21 meters through canyons in the seabed. The sun may not be shining in Morea, but the sea is dead calm, so visibility is good. A lemon shark seems to materialize out of nowhere. And two black-tipped reef sharks cruise by on a snack run. There's a great big triggerfish and a whole bunch of little ones. And yeah, it was beautiful. Crystal clear.
It was a perfect dive for the end of the trip. It really was.
After 14 days at sea, MS Paul Gauguin is leaving Morea, returning to her home port of Papeete, Tahiti. In just 2.5 hours, her passengers will find themselves back in the real world, and her crew can take a bow.
Until the last minute, you cannot tell if it's going to be good or bad. So it worked out well. So you just have to keep your finger crossed until the last minute, and it's good. And be lucky.
We survived pretty well.
On this voyage, even 300 kilos of tuna couldn't defeat Chef Daniel.
I don't think about challenges. It's more like problem solving and be inventive and be flexible.
As the passengers bid adieu to French Polynesia, the captain reflects.
You are never calm all the way, because you think about the weather, you think how it looks and things like that. And then at the end, you think about the possible technical problems which can occur. So this is why, it's never boring, never boring.
On her round trip to paradise, MS Paul Gauguin has delivered a cruise that's been out of this world.